Hello, I'm Jose, and this is the Cinematic Dogma podcast. Today, as every week, I am I'm blessed with the company of my incomparable friend, Blake.
Thanks, Jose. I'm glad to be here. We are #blessed.
Hashtag blessed. But yeah, so what did we watch today? What did you bring opinions about today?
I brought opinions about one of my favorite filmmakers from the 90s.
Okay.
It's said a little bit in jest, but I really do like Paul Thomas Anderson, and we watched, I think, one of the only films of his that you actually like, Boogie Nights.
Yeah, I agree. I always have like a very sweet spot for this movie. I think that when it came out, it was like very transgressive. It was about like the sex wall, and there were rumors that you could see a penis in it. So I think that at the beginning it was
18-year-old closeted Blake, by the way. Not enough.
But without like getting into details, I remember like watching it like maybe not when it was released, like 1 or 2 years later, and I remember saying that I said this is good. This is actually a good movie. And I think that it was just after Magnolia. And I remember...
I thought it was right before. I'll check it. You keep going.
What I remember is like I had like a bit of a bias disposition. It's like, this is not going to be that good. It's only looking like for the polemic of just depicting this world. And when I had the chance of watching it, I was pleasantly surprised about it. You know, not about the ending. It's like it doesn't matter that part. But I mean, like, hey, I was, like pretty surprised about like, hey, this is a pretty good movie. And then I never watched it again or thought too much about it. It only comes up when I watch something by Paul Thomas Anderson, and I always think like, oh, he has movies that I don't like that much, like Magnolia, and then he has movies that I think that they are pretty darn good, like this one.
Did you say? Well, yeah, okay. Well, first off, I'm looking at IMDb. Boogie Nights came out in 1997. Magnolia came out in 1999.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then what about his other films? Like, I loved, and I didn't expect to love it, but I loved Punch Drunk Love.
Never watched it.
The Master.
Never watched it.
Oh, wow. You really don't like him. I mean, Phantom Thread.
I love Phantom Thread, but it's like, I'm not a big fan of There Will Be Blood. I tried to watch Licorice Pizza recently, and I gave up. A History of Violence. Yeah, A History of Violence is his.
That's Cronenberg, you piece of shit.
No, what did he do then? He did another one like 8-9 years ago. Sorry, you are the one that has the IMDb page open. I should have opened it beforehand.
There's too many music videos. He did Radiohead, Haim. I don't see anything. Inherent Vice? Is that what you're talking about?
Inherent Vice, yeah. I tried to watch it also on a plane, and I lasted like 30 minutes until I was like, no.
Yeah, that's why I said kind of jokingly is that he really is one of my favorite directors from the 90s, early 2000s, because I honestly kind of agree that he hasn't done much. That speaks to me recently. The Master was okay, whatever. I never finished Phantom Thread. I did like Anima, what he directed in Anima. And Licorice Pizza, I specifically remember going to a midnight screening of that and falling asleep. So.
Yeah, for me, it's a bit of he's not a bad director. It's just that I don't resonate with his stuff most of the time. So for me, it was a bit of hey, I'm saving like Boogie Nights as this kind of, hey, this was like pretty good. Let's never watch it again. And let's just save like that feeling that I had when I watched it. But I don't know why, like recently we were talking about, I don't know if it was Paul Thomas Anderson or something else. And I wanted like to just rewatch it, especially because Julianne Moore, she's not exactly my weak spot. And she's going to be, she's going to be in a Almodovar movie with Tilda Swinton. So a part of me is just thinking about like, well, maybe I should give her like one more chance.
You really should. She's good.
She can be good, but it's like, I had a feeling that she has a contractual obligation on every single role to I have to cry.
I don't know. I know you don't watch SNL, but there's a comedian on there. Her name is Zoe Feynman, and she's good at impressions. And she does an impression of Julianne Moore, but you can't tell if she's crying or laughing. And she did it in front of Julianne Moore, and it made Julianne Moore laugh. So that's what I was thinking.
Or cry. We don't know.
Or cry. No, we have no idea.
But this is the reason why picking this movie. So, do you want to summarize it?
I can. You're gonna have to help me on this because we were speaking just before we started recording that in the 90s, at least, Paul Thomas Anderson considered himself the Robert Altman kind of
the 90s.
In that the stories are extremely sprawling. They all happen at the same time. There's a million storylines
Characters,
in a really cool way. I think he makes work. I mean, it works for me in this film and in Magnolia. I understand it only worked for you in Boogie Nights. But basically, the film centers around a young Dirk Diggler who is a high school dropout in Southern California, and he works at a restaurant, and apparently he's just hung like you wouldn't believe. So he does a little bit of hustling work where he works in the kitchen at this restaurant or nightclub, whatever it is. But, he performs in the kitchen for...
He performs. He's like, he can just show... Yeah, he can show his charms for a price.
So, a very famous porn director named Jack, played by...
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds, thank you. I always want to call him Jeff Bridges. I'm aware they're different people, but for me...
Pretty different, monsieur.
Jack hears about him. He goes and... purchases Dirk Diggler's services or talks to him about his services, and he's like, hey, I could get you a job. So basically he puts him in his porn films. Dirk Diggler is a huge success because of his huge member. And he kind of gets wrapped up into this, for lack of a better word, family that's centered around the pornography business.
Dysfunctional family, yeah.
Jack is married to Julianne Moore, who also stars in his film. There's what I assume is an underage skater girl. What is her name? She disappeared. Heather Graham. She is a extremely maladjusted youth who happens to be beautiful and acts out by having sex with men on camera without having skates on. There's also a guy who finances all of the pornographic films they call him the Colonel, but he's really an investor. At some point he goes to jail for child pornography. So it's just, you're just thrown into this world where there's a million different characters. They're all good. They're all bad.
Yeah. You also have like a Philip Seymour Hoffman as a gay cameraman that is infatuated with Dirk Diggler. You have William H. Macy that is like a director assistant with his wife. John C. Reilly. Yeah.
William H. Macy's storyline.
Yep.
William
with
H.
the
Macy
wife.
just plays a cuck for about 2 hours.
William H. Macy just plays a cock?
A cuck. Basically, his wife throughout the film
is
caught having sex in front of other men, and he's just kind of this pathetic character that witnesses it.
Yeah, she's like with the same kind of acting as the like that woman in that video that it was like popular, like the gay video of you're doing what in front of my salad? He has like the same reaction. It's like, what the fuck are you doing every time? But yeah, it's like, I agree with you. This is a bit more of an ensemble movie that is like, it centers a bit more in Dirk Diggler, but it's a bit more about all of the characters and how they evolve around time. And Don Cheadle too.
Oh, Don Cheadle, damn. This is a really good cast. Ultimately, Dirk's ego gets bigger than his gigantic schlong. He steps away from the fam, quote unquote, the family. Gets into some drug use, some crime, and ultimately realizes his place really is with Jack, with Julianne Moore, with Skater Girl, and he returns to resume his...
Sorry, is Roller Girl. Skater Girl was the song by Avril Lavigne.
Avril Lavigne. Okay, all right. Roller Girl. Anyway, I think that's it. I mean, this is a sprawling story. I left out a lot, but overall, that's mostly it.
Yeah, and the story takes place between late 70s and the 80s.
Yep. in
So
Los Angeles. Yeah.
yeah, and there is a bit of how we see how drugs like penetrated that industry and it turned like everything upside down, and also like how the industry like just shift from this is like something that you go to a cinema to see to now you consume it at home.
Yeah, yeah. You see the drugs basically break all the characters. I mean, they're not fully broken, but sorry, when I paused, I was thinking about there's this scene between Roller Girl and Julianne Moore where they're just high as fuck, and Roller Girl is like, "I want you to be my mom," and Julianne's more like, "I'll be your mom," and it's just like these people that are so desperate for
Yeah,
what they're
for
not
love.
offered
Yeah,
outside of pornography, and they're trying to fill it with sex and
yeah,
money and
yeah. Well, actually, the character of Julianne Moore is a mom, but is that she cannot see her son, her daughter. I don't remember because we never see him in camera. Is that because of all of the problems that she had with drugs and like just working on the porn industry?
living in a porn studio with
Yep.
a
Yeah.
porn lord. Yep.
And this storyline may or may not make Julianne Moore cry. I won't spoil it.
It's so interesting that they show basically a custody battle, or at least parts of a custody battle with Julianne Moore, and the way her life is presented to the court, it sounds pretty bad. Like the kid would have to be in a
Yep.
home where there's pornographic actors, and it's not unfair. At least it's not presented in an unfair way to Julianne Moore. You're like, yeah, a kid probably shouldn't be in that environment, but you'd have to wonder how that same scene would play out today. With, can you imagine the number of women or men that have OnlyFans now that are going through custody battles? Like, I don't think that's an argument anymore for adult work.
I'm not sure about that, honestly. I'm not sure. It's like I had the feeling that it would still be affecting like the custody itself. One thing is like that we have normalized it more in our gay world about like, yeah, probably several people that they have an OnlyFans account. I do not have an OnlyFans account. If you were going to be like joking about that,
No, I
but
was going to say I don't think it's fair to restrict this to the gay world, because I
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like 93% of OnlyFans people are women.
Yeah. But what I mean is that doesn't mean that it's a bit more common. That doesn't mean that it's normalized or that it would be like the kind of influence that you would want to have on a kid. I can really see like a custody battle, like just applying you have an OnlyFans page, an active OnlyFans page that you record in the same house where the kid lives as a negative that it can actually make you lose custody.
Sure, but you can't deny that in the film they say because she's in the industry, she's not fit to be a parent. That's what I think has shifted.
Yeah. But it's like I think that the problem is not only about she works on the industry. It's more about like, hey, you guys record there. You have like parties there where there is also drugs, and you took the kid to the house. That's the problem. It was not only like judgmental, like Puritan about like you work in porn. It's not no, you
It
work in
wasn't
porn.
only that, but it absolutely was that.
Yeah. I mean, of course, but to be fair, I mean, sorry if it comes across like a bit Puritan, but I had the feeling that that would be a factor even nowadays about like, hey, the way that you actually earn money is through pornography.
Yeah,
It's like if you don't
I've
don't
never been
separate
hurt.
these walls. Yeah.
I think they're more separate, way more separate now. I don't think you could bring up having a successful career as an OnlyFans model as a negative in a court if, like you just said, the child's life was separate from that, completely
Yeah,
separate.
yeah, and that's like pretty hard because I had the feeling that most of the people that they have on OnlyFans is that they use their personal space for recording. So it would be like pretty hard to just prove that you are like separating the life of the kid from your OnlyFans space, let's say.
Yep, makes
So,
sense.
but yeah, no, that's a good summary. A lot of drama, a lot of comedy at the same time, a good amount of crime at the same time.
By the way, I googled it. 70% of OnlyFans creators are women, not 93. Just want to put that out
17. Yeah. I would be curious about like what would be the percentage of straight porn on
I would say
OnlyFans
like
versus
95% of the gay models are straight.
gay for pay, only gay for pay. Okay, so did you like it?
I did like it. I liked it a lot. It's a solid movie. In my education in Paul Thomas Anderson's oeuvre, I saw Magnolia first, and I prefer that film to this one. So I've always been a little bit let down. It's not fair to the film, but I loved Magnolia so much that this film doesn't feel quite as important to me. At least that's the memory I had when I went in to rewatch it. When I rewatched it this time, I was like, this is super, super entertaining and devastating and funny and weird.
Yeah, yeah. I would say for me, I watched Magnolia first, and then I watched Boogie Nights, but I saw years later. So that's the reason why I thought that they actually were released in the other order. I found Magnolia pretty pretentious on the messaging and everything, and I found like Boogie Nights like a super endearing movie that still like clicks for me. And I also find it, we didn't mention it, but this movie lasts 2 hours and a half, I think, or 2 hours and 20 minutes. It definitely doesn't feel like that. It's like the kind of movie that is like super engaging. It's like a movie that I feel that is in between a Martin Scorsese and a Quentin Tarantino type of movie.
Ooh, nice reference. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I feel like it's like, oh, this is a bit of the crime flavor that they like. Both of them, like Martin Scorsese, sometimes they have like the speed up of, hey, we're going to be like doing a bit more frantic like Scorsese likes to do, like in The Goodfellas. And I had the feeling that this is a movie that if it was a tiny bit more violent and a bit more like B-series 70s, it could be like perfect for Tarantino. I would have bet that it's like this was directed by Tarantino.
Yeah, I can see that completely. And I agree with you. It's like right in the middle of Scorsese and Tarantino. Well, given the fact that it takes place in the 80s, right at the turn from the 70s to 80s, so Quentin Tarantino's like, nope, I'm going to stay in the 60s and 70s.
That's too modern for me. That's too nowadays. But no, I have forgotten like how fleshed out most of the characters were. And it's true, it's like none of them, as you have like 20 different characters, it's like none of them is like fully developed, like beyond like the particular, you know. The rest of them is like we are given like a small snapshots into their personal life, but it's enough to just make them endearing, making us care for them. And when you have like so many characters, like with Roller Girl, is like we are given like some scenes like when she's in high school with Julianne Moore, like the custody battle with Don Cheadle, like how he's trying to make a career. It's mostly comedic for Don Cheadle, but it's still like serious. That scene on the diner towards the end is fucking amazing, and it's like, yeah, this is Tarantino 100% too, you know.
Yeah, I had completely forgotten about that scene, and it's like the first real splash of violence, and it's like a legitimate splash of violence.
I don't know if it was already after that scene in the guy that is going to be like buying the drugs. Do you remember that they go like with C. Reilly and Mark Wahlberg? They go with this other guy to sell drugs. Like to the guy that is like on the speedo, and there is like these Philippines or Vietnamese kids like running around, and the bouncer is like, that is also, I would say, that is like the biggest splash of violence, and it's like pretty well made on just building the tension of what is going to happen here. Is that they are like in a very tough spot. So I feel like this is masterfully done for just like jumping from a comedy to a pure drama to a thriller, you know, like from one place to another, and doing it incredibly well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is one of the few directors that can handle a sprawling story like this. And I agree with you. I wouldn't call Magnolia pretentious. I would call it way more serious, or it takes itself more serious. Maybe that's the definition of pretension. And this film does seem way more, I don't like this term, but heartfelt or authentic, I think is the word you used. I would agree with that. Yeah. And I think he, at least with Licorice Pizza, he's going back in that direction after spending some time in the world of Magnolia and The Master, which I'm sorry is the most pretentious film I think I've ever seen. Not that it's horrible at all, but it's extremely pretentious. I don't know. I like Paul Thomas Anderson overall.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think that he's super talented. That there is nothing wrong with that, but I have the feeling that he tends to try to achieve artistic goals with the medium. You know, I think that, for example, The Phantom Thread or There Will Be Blood I think that they also are like very focused on the artistic expression of the medium.
Yeah, yeah, and he's definitely playing around with what he can express, and
Yeah,
sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's always
yeah,
interesting, in my opinion.
yeah. But I've had the feeling that it's like Boogie Nights tries to be more mundane than that.
Yeah,
And it was very, I mean, I think that it's a bit more like when I remove like this layer of artistic expression that it may or may not work. I mean, for me, in the Phantom Thread, it landed. That is suited because it's not my type of movie, like a bit more of a period piece, a bit more like personal drama, but in a very small scope. But it happened. It
also
actually worked.
this was only his second feature-length film ever.
After Magnolia?
No, Magnolia was a
Oh,
couple years after.
okay.
He did a movie called Hard 8 in 1996. That was the first one.
And he did this. Oh, wow.
So
And what I'm
that's very
surprised,
impressive.
yeah, and what I'm surprised is that the talent that he attracted to this.
Yeah, like
That is
a
it.
huge amount of talent. Like the cast is insane.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, were they all popular before this? I mean, Burt Reynolds definitely, he was popular, but it's like Mark Wahlberg, I don't think that he did too much stuff before this.
I mean, his modeling career was definitely huge at that point. He also had a rapping career, so he was in a lot of areas.
Okay, I understand like why people were not taking him too seriously when he started like popping up everywhere
Right.
in the 90s.
He had also just done that horrible hate crime where he and his street gang beat up the Asian man for being Asian. So he was definitely in the news at this time.
Not for the right reasons, clearly. Holy shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a pretty garbage person, if you believe,
Was he?
police reports.
Wow. Okay. This is interesting. Renaissance Man, The Basketball Diaries, Fear. Yeah, it's one of his first movies. It looks like in 93 was his first acting role, and in 97 he did Boogie Nights, Marky Mark. So yeah, actress. And let me just check. I'm just checking like Julianne Moore just for giggles.
The
Oh, okay.
Independent has an article called Mark Wahlberg's Racist Hate Crimes, the full list.
Oh my god. Okay. Feel a bit in shock right now. See, actually, Julianne Moore, the first big movie that she did, Marlene Craven, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle in 92. Before that, it was like TV movies.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought she had a bigger career in the 80s, but I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, no. In the 80s, she had like some TV series appearances and a TV movie or two. And then she did Shortcuts in 93.
And then she's like, hey, Paul Thomas Anderson, I saw how Robert Altman does it.
I can tell you how to make this work. But yeah, now going back to the movie, I was mind blown. I love when I see like these movies that they don't feel it's like they're not going to be like reinventing the wall, but they are like really well made. Because doing a movie of more than 2 hours that is disengaging with this amount of characters, making you care for everything, I think that this requires like quite a bit of talent.
Agreed. To juggle the scale of this or how large the scope is, I think it's impressive.
Yep.
Also, he directed a movie called The Dirk Diggler Story in 1988. We should find that.
So he made like some kind of... Oh, maybe it's like the documentary that Julianne Moore character is doing. That's he actually... That would be a cool... That would be like a cool kind of spin-off of the movie. Yeah. There is a point that Julianne Moore like tries to get into directing and she actually she directs
her heart out.
Yeah, she directs that, and it's a bit more about like the story of him. And I think that is like the point where Dirk Diggler is like just going off the handle of like just getting like really full of himself. But yeah. Anything else to say about it? Sorry, like in analysis perspective.
I mean, this is just a really, really fun film. Oh, that sounds so unappealing to say. I'm trying to think of the right way to describe this film. It's not serious, but it's very, very good. It's a little bit more devastating than I remember. The when each character kind of breaks down, it's like, oh, this is heavy, which it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend this film to anyone that's not Jose's parents.
Sure. I like. I mean, it's true that it's not too serious, but it's like a drama, and it's like when people like break down and they give us like a bit of introspection into, hey, this is a bit of the consequences of the life that you have chosen. It's like super heartfelt. It's like pretty hard not to feel empathy for them. Like when Roller Girl is like just like realizing about like, oh yeah, I'm a 10-year-old high school dropout, and it's going to be like pretty hard to just get back on track on anything,
Yeah,
everything.
He doesn't hold back on the harsh truths. Like, we like these characters for the most part. They make bad decisions and then they suffer those consequences, and you're like, yeah, I love you, but you brought
You dumb bitch. Dumb bitch. Yeah, and it doesn't fall into the over melodramatic. I mean, it's a bit melodramatic, but it's not like soap opera level.
It doesn't veer into the Julianne Moore telling the pharmacist to suck her dick territory.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it's respectfully.
It's approaching it.
Yeah. It's about to cross the line, but it's like, it's just stuff here. Okay, should we go over the questions?
Yes.
Okay, so Blake, would you watch Boogie Nights again?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it would be within the next year, but in a couple of years, I'd watch this again.
Yeah, same here. It's like super easy to watch. It's like, as I was saying, like watching a Quentin Tarantino movie. Even like the ones that they are not the best, is like you can put up with it. That doesn't apply with PTA. Not always. So this is like a rare gem on that aspect. Would you recommend?
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Quickly, would you rewatch Boogie Nights next or Phantom Thread next?
Oh, I would rewatch Boogie Nights because Phantom Thread feels more like work. I remember like watching There Will Be Blood, and I remember liking it, not being crazy about it, but it's like, it was fine. It was way better than I expected from PTA, and I also woke with the feeling of I'm never going to rewatch this.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for answering.
Yep. Would you recommend Boogie Nights?
Yeah. This is a good film. I mean, there's considerations more so than a lot of films we talk about. It's pretty graphic in terms of adult situations, so I would think carefully. But yes, I would recommend this to a lot of people.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I would recommend it to a lot of people, but also things are done in a way that they don't feel. I don't know. It's not shot like, once again, Gaspar Noé's Love. That is this is about like making pornographic content in the big screen. Is that this doesn't really feel like it's trying to do a porno. Is that there is pornographic content, but somehow I didn't feel like, oh my god, this is so enticing. It almost feels like this almost like a parody at some points.
I agree, but I wonder how much of that has changed since it came out in 1997.
Yes.
Because when I saw this in like the year 2000, I was like, whoa, this is pornography. Yep. I was also Mormon, so...
that may affect too also your perspective about this movie. But for me, like nowadays, I was like, no. I mean, I wouldn't pretty tame. Yeah, pretty tame. I wouldn't watch it with my parents, Would I recommend it to my parents? Probably not. But it's getting to a point that I would say, I think that in cinema, when we see like most of the sex scenes, they are there for just being enticing, In this, I think that the sex scenes are just for saying, this is what they're doing. This is like what the porn industry is about.
But also it's to help the audience build not just empathy, but like sympathy, maybe pity almost for these characters.
Yeah. Like the first scene with Julianne Moore and Dirk Diggler, that Julianne Moore says like, no, don't come inside, just come inside. And then it's like, that they complete the scene. You don't see it, but it's like you only see like the camera people like with their mouth like completely open about like, okay, that's a well-endowed gentleman. And then when he's like, oh, I can go again. So it's a bit more for just building the idea of he was basically born for this world.
He really was.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel it's like it doesn't feel too gratuitous. That it could be like pretty easy to just make a movie like this and just being like super gratuitous about it.
I agree with you. It's not like you're not going to get an erection watching this movie, I guess is a crass way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's like super hard to do something like this, that it dances into this as, hey, I'm not going to be like holding back, but I'm not going to be like doing like the pornographic stuff. And one thing that we didn't mention earlier is like I love, sorry for the crass expression again, like the cock tease for the whole movie, that you're like, okay, everyone is talking about only a single thing in this movie, but you don't show it. It's like I love like how smart the script is for just like toying with the audience about it, and then at the end it's like, okay, I'm going to give you what you came for.
I'm pretty sure this is the film that inspired Hung on HBO, another show centered around the size of someone's penis, and you never get to see the penis.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I hear it's like at least it's like, I'm going to give you at the end.
With 2.5 hours of teasing, and then
Yeah.
and then we'll show you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is that maybe this is a spoiler for a 30-year-old movie, almost 30 years old. But yeah, I even like knew it before I watched the movie. That is like people told me, it's like, yeah, at the end you get to see the dick. And I'm like, okay, I don't care too much, but I mean, there are like faster ways to just watch this stuff without 2 hours and a half.
Yep.
A movie. So yeah, I would recommend it. I think that is like a masterclass of screenwriting. So,
would you? Right? We didn't talk
I
about that. He wrote the full thing.
think so, or co-wrote it. Let me just check. No, he wrote it.
Got it.
So I don't know if it's like based on a novel that is based on real events.
Well, I mean, if he had another film about Dirk Diggler 10 years before, he's clearly been workshopping this character. He clearly had been workshopping this character forever.
Yeah. So would you remember Boogie Nights?
Yeah. So I think the last time I saw this was early 2000s, and I remembered a significant amount. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I remember like some of the scenes. I remember Julianne Moore crying. I remember like things like falling apart.
You didn't. You just remembered Julianne Moore crying in general.
Fair. But no, there is like this video that I love that is like a sequence of all of the times that Julianne Moore has cried in movies.
That's how I discovered Max Richter.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
Max Richter's music to that, yeah.
Yeah. I love that piece. And what piece is it? Do you remember?
I think it's the nature of daylight. I think
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah, I think so. And there is that scene where she's crying outside of a brick wall. Yeah, and it's like, that's it. That's Boogie Nights. That's the cry of Boogie Nights. So yeah, I definitely would remember like most of it. There were like some scenes that I have forgotten, but overall, it's like it's
completely forgotten Don Cheadle's storyline, which is a pity because it was hilarious.
Yeah, is he trying to find his identity, the poor guy. Always like 20 years behind. Is there anything artistic about Boogie Nights?
Yeah, a lot. The writing, the direction, the performances. As always with Paul Thomas Anderson's films, the music is incredibly important and contributes a lot. This is the full package.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love like some of the visual effects that they do, but they don't abuse of it. Like when Dirk Diggler is like talking about like, hey, this is the name that I'm going to be using. I have like that scene like just lives rent free in my mind. Like I remember like just watching it the first time. I don't know if it was like part of the trailers originally, and I remember like this is a super cool made, like a scene for just like presenting the name.
Yep, I agree. I love that scene, and I actually can't think of his porn name. Oh no,
Dirk Diggler.
Hello, yeah, sorry. What was his actual name?
Something or Paul something. Let me just see. Eddie Adams.
Got it.
Yeah, forgettable compared with Dirk Diggler. What a name.
What's his character's name? Because he starts a series of pornographic films where he plays a spy.
Yeah, like a
Dirk
Bruce
Diggler
Lee. Yeah, like a porn Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
Basically. I don't remember. And he actually does them with John C. Reilly.
Yeah. They're partners in crime. Crime fighting.
it's so funny, like seeing she really as a very young actor dedicated to porn. That is like, is it okay? Sure. So is this a timeless piece?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's firmly rooted in late 70s, early 80s, but pornography is timeless. So.
Well, I mean, I think that yes, pornography is timeless. I think that it depicts some of the interesting points of the porn industry back then. About like the shift that they did, like drag, how it affected like all of that scene. But I feel like at the end, at the core, it's a bit more about like choosing family, and just like finding support in like the people that you have around and appreciating that. So I just feel it's like this is 100% timeless. You could do like this story in almost any other industry. I mean, it's more enticing in the porn industry, but you could do it about like a group of bakers. I mean, hell, just look at the bear. The bear is
just gonna say, this is like the bear without food.
That is like, you can do it anywhere. It's about like a dysfunctional setting, but it's like people finding support in others. It's like, that's completely timeless.
Yep.
So, could you turn this into a TV show?
I don't think so. Mostly because I don't know. Maybe it would work. I just like this film so much. I wouldn't want to change the structure at all. But there's probably enough here to be an HBO miniseries. I'm just gonna say no. I would not.
I'm going to go with yes, because I like it so much that I wouldn't have minded developing like more the characters. Like Willing is Messi. Is I wanted to know more instead of being a joke.
And also, what happens to Don Cheadle and his wife?
Yeah, after they opened the stereo. Actually, when we're talking about this, I was saying, it's like, is this a base in real life? And I look up like the Don Cheadle character, and they actually sell t-shirts of the shop that he set up at the end. Like the Don Cheadle super stereo cool wall. That is like, that's a super cool, well, it's not called Don Cheadle. I don't remember like the name of the character. But I thought that is like, that would be like a super cool like t-shirt to have.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that 99% of the people will be like, what the heck is that? But that 1% that they get it, I would be like their best friends. So yeah, I definitely could have a TV show. It was a TV show. I mean, not a 5 seasons, 25 episodes per season like TV show, but a total 10, 20 episodes, like over the span of a couple of years. I think that you can pull it. If you actually do it like a bit of we're doing like every 3 years is one season. Imagine like even jumping to OnlyFans.
I feel like it could be a 10 episode, 1 hour each series tops. I wouldn't want to see 30 episodes of this. But my answer is still no. But I respect your opinion, Jose. Sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you for just allowing me to have one. Could Boogie Nights have been a short?
Could it have been under an hour? Sure. It would not be the same product. It wouldn't get across the same story in the slightest.
Yeah,
so my answer is no.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. With the amount, because I think that part of the magic is like being an ensemble movie that works, that makes you care for all of the characters, and it's like you cannot do that in less than an hour.
That's not to say things couldn't be cut. Like Julianne Moore's direction storyline, that didn't add anything. That could have been cut entirely. There are things that could make this shorter, but again, the point of this is the big, enormous scope of the story.
I never imagined that I would be like disagreeing with you on this, but I like that they gave more screen time to Julianne Moore and tried to develop her more as this is a truly genuine human being, and it's like, yeah, she's a bit just living the consequences of a lot of stupid stuff that she has done, and now she's like a bit trapped.
You know what t-shirt I want made? It's just a sentence that said, I wish they gave Julianne Moore more screen time, by Jose. I would wear that shirt for
No, I was happy that they gave more time. It's like, in this case, it actually worked. Okay?
Right,
not in general. I'm not asking in general. Please, Hollywood, Mr. Hollywood, please don't take this as a request. Julianne Moore gets enough screen time. Do you think that this movie could have been better?
It's The answer is no, that you should put down. This is not a perfect film, but it's pretty darn good. There are no glaring problems, in my opinion, so no.
Yeah. For me, it's no. I wouldn't change anything on this movie. It's as good as it can get, I feel. Yeah. Cool. Should we score this?
Yes, I think. Who should score first?
So this was my pick, so I guess that you have to score it.
This is tough. I hadn't thought about a score until this moment. I'm going to go with my gut. I'm going to give it an 8.5.
8.5? I'm going to give it a 9.
I almost went with a 9.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah, I'm impressed about like how good and enjoyable and how well crafted it is and how classy
And
it
how
is
much
for
you
the...
enjoyed Julianne Moore's performance.
Exactly. Is that this a bit more of the Julianne Moore tax? Is like if you make Julianne Moore tolerable in a movie, you deserve a higher score.
I'm very impressed, and I can't wait to watch Punch Drunk Love with you next.
Okay. I don't know if this is a threat. Alright, anything else to say about Boogie Nights?
Go see it, and don't take your kids.
Or do... I don't know. It's
No,
like
no.
the world has changed so
You
much.
take your kid's going to have a miserable experience. Give your kid the Blu-ray. Let them watch it alone.
Well, yeah, it would be pretty awkward to watch this with your parents.
Yep.
So, did you watch it with your parents?
I did not, no. I didn't even tell my parents I watched rated R movies till I was like 25, so...
God. Alright, to everyone out there, thank you so much for putting up with us.
Until next time, guys.
Bye.